I just wanted to I have 3 little disclaimers before we get started. The first one is, this is going to be a pretty high-level examination of technology. And by that, I mean, like, as a parent, as an educator, as just kind of a person alive in 2026, there's so many different types of technologies that we're dealing with, and things are changing so rapidly. How can you keep up with, Sora 1, 2, 3, and a banana 1, 2, 3, like all these things that, for me, coming out of philosophy, the higher up we can take it, the more we're going to get a more kind of long-lasting or deeper look at it, instead of trying to keep up with, like, which technology are we talking about in particular. What I am addressing is the question really of this shift that a lot of folks are talking about from an attention economy, which we see with social media and kind of continuing this desire for engagement, to what's being termed an intimacy or an attachment economy. And this was what we're seeing with AI companions. And even if that doesn't feel like something that you're like, well, I'm not on Replica trying to make a grief bot or a companion bot, this really actually is, I think, the next horizon. So, a lot of, in this area, what we have happening now are that critics and skeptics are a little behind the curve. And I think what needs to happen is that the theorists and the thinkers are before the curve. So that's kind of why I'm focused on the companion bots. The second thing I want to say is that I'm going to be fully transparent that I am extremely skeptical of technology and of AI in particular. I'm nothing if not nostalgic. I definitely long for a time where we don't have any of these devices cluttering our lives. But I am, as I look around, I see people that are on my side of the fence. I also see people who are on the other side of the fence. So when we have time for question and answer, I definitely would love to hear any critiques of my argument and people who have different points of view. And then the last thing I want to say is that there are some pretty hefty philosophical ideas in here that are not mine, that are, I'll reference some different philosophers. And this is not necessarily an apology, but more of a request to just stick with me through that, even if you start to feel yourself like, drift away. Beth in the house. Okay, then we just stick with me. It may feel esoteric and irrelevant, but I think that in the end, these thinkers have really helped me over the years shed light on certain dilemmas, so I hope that they will in this case also. Okay, so here we go. Before we get started, I want you to just close your eyes and pause with me for a moment. Try to imagine yourself in a place, a location from your past, maybe somewhere from your early childhood, Jameson. A place of deep comfort and safety with an individual or a group of people who made you feel deeply safe. It doesn't matter where it is, but visualize yourself somewhere specific with specific people. Try to let yourself remember the textures of the place, the faces of the people, and as many details as your body remembers. Where were you? Where did you just go? I hope that you were transported to your own genuinely happy place, through a vivid, visceral memory to some deeply imprinted past. Our innate embodied knowledge of a time can carry us each to a world of meaning, of comfort, of safety, and of home. Does anyone want to share any details of the place they had in mind? What comes to mind for me is our old family beach house, filled with the laughter of my 3 sisters and our parents. I remember how the shells on the outside of the house felt against my hand. I see the light bulb dangling from the lone wire of the back porch where the wood was warped from the South Georgia humidity. I can even hear the loud attic fan in the kitchen as I see my mother at the sink. And I remember the decorative cutting board hanging on the wall, 2 painted figures, a man and a woman, and a caption that read, "Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be." But right now, here we are together in the present. And even though we're all in this nice, comforting, wood-paneled room in Brooklyn, there's a world outside that often accosts us, demands things from us, alienates us. And tonight we're here to talk about one particularly alienating aspect of our current world, the rapid development of technology, in particular artificial intelligence. There's so much about AI that is concerning, from job loss to surveillance to privacy issues to data centers, excessive water use, electricity, or just the collective loss of critical thinking and lack of access to truth. But I want to zoom out even more to look at some of the bigger philosophical and even spiritual and ethical implications of the current AI ideology. Tech, with a capital T, has sold itself on a message of ease, of convenience, efficiency, and progress. But for whom and at what cost? Tonight, I want us to think about what we sacrifice when we buy what they are selling. What is really at stake when we use their seductive tools? Do you feel it, the collective unease, the gnawing suspicion that composing a prompt may not be the most fulfilling act for a human being, or that the Claudes of the world may be less innocuous than they seem? If so, this conversation is for you. Personally, I've long been interested in questions of authenticity. Many of you know that I began my academic career thinking about fashion, and I'm now teaching at the Fashion Institute, as we were talking about. But my interest in fashion was never just about the fun of clothing. It was about the question of how we live an authentic life in a world that dictates what languages we must use. In fashion, that tension is illustrated aesthetically or visually, but we all are caught in the existential push and pull of trying to embrace an authentic self in a world that we didn't choose. Under tech, and I mean under a sometimes oppressive tech ideology, I would suggest that we are all living inauthentically. And tonight, I'm making the claim that we have the moral responsibility to live authentically. And by this, I mean living in the truth of what we are as human. There is a responsibility here to others as well as to ourselves in being honest about who we are. So I ask, what does the AI relationship do to our capacity for authentic existence? Well, one answer may be that it habituates us to ease. Our mental, emotional, and moral muscles literally atrophy, making it much harder for us to resist the life of ease and efficiency that we are offered by the big tech paradigm. Technology is increasingly everywhere around us. We're told it's our destiny. It's inevitable. It will lead to utopia, and we better just get on board the train to progress. And it's uniquely hard to resist these technologies because they are so seductive. Technology calls to us, it wants something from us, and while it does give us something in return, what it gives us is based on a lie that I'll explain in a moment. Technology is seductive precisely because it removes resistance or friction. But that's the very thing that makes us human, struggling through the friction of encountering others and recognizing that they are just like us. So what I want to address is the seductive fantasy that we get the benefits of wisdom, love, and meaning without paying the cost. But first, wisdom, love, and meaning require us to be honest about what and who we are, embodied beings that exist in a world of others. So I hope we can untangle this together tonight. So who or what are we again? Well, tech pros will give you one answer. The folks in Silicon Valley are operating under a system of materialism that views the human brain as nothing more than an advanced machine. The mind is a machine, the machine is a mind. Sam Altman, OpenAI overlord number one, let something slip in an interview the other day that was deeply revealing. As revealing of his worldview as it was disturbing. I see some of you smiling, maybe you know what I'm going to say. But, I mean, he said so many crazy things, but this is what he said the other day. He responded to this cold calculation. Oh, when he was challenged on the concerning amount of energy that these data centers are using, he said, quote, "People talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model, but it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes like 20 years of life and all the food you eat during that time before you get smart. As if humans are nothing more than food or energy-consuming computers." It's known that tech engineers frequently guzzle a disgusting drink called Soylent that's meant to just fill you with the appropriate calories so you don't have to stop to actually eat a meal. Their drink of choice, the name based on a 70s horror film where Soylent was actually composed of human remains, also reveals so much about their worldview. So let's talk a little more about this tech materialism and what it reveals about definitions of the self and selfhood. Most of you may be familiar with the French philosopher René Descartes and his famous cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. He sat in his robe by the fire and determined that his body could not be trusted. He concluded his senses were flawed and the only thing that mattered was his mind. He was indeed a thinking thing. And so the imbalance of focus on mind over matter began. But before you begin to think I've lost the plot, wait, hey Lucy, doesn't Altman objectify us? Isn't he focused on the mind as nothing more than physical? Isn't that the opposite problem? The similar error they both make is two-sided. Thinking is the only thing that matters, and matter that thinks is the only thing that matters. Stay with me, we'll make it make sense. these ideas, even if they sound sort of opposite, make the same mistake. A mistake described by another French philosopher, Jean-Paul Sartre, as something he called bad faith. Bad faith, to start, is fundamentally a lie to oneself about the nature of oneself. To even speak of the mind-body dualism is to address a false problem. For Sartre, Descartes' dilemma begins from a defective starting place. Discussing the self as either mind or body is to imply that there even exists such two distinct components of an individual. Under Sartre's perspective, mind and body are so enmeshed in the human project of freedom that it's impossible to see them as two separate substances that require unification. As Merleau-Ponty also put it, the idea that an individual could be simply mind implies a completely disembodied consciousness floating nowhere. Consciousness, as we understand it, necessitates a point of view, a here from which to know and perceive and interpret the world. That here is indeed a body. Sartre's idea is that bad faith, or lying to oneself, also fundamentally denies our radical freedom. Acknowledging and accepting freedom causes intense anxiety and vertigo, like standing on the precipice of a cliff. All of the hardest choices in life, whether or not to have children, who to marry, where and when to move, what job to pursue, cause us such intense anxiety because we know that making one choice is the death of all the other choices. This causes us great pain and fear and anxiety. According to Sartre, it even causes anguish. Although freedom could or should be viewed positively, this unlimited possibility that freedom affords us provides or motivates this bad faith or this lying to oneself. We avoid freedom and anguish by running to all sorts of efforts to control or mask our own freedom and the freedom of others. We may even pick up our phones, wink wink. But the very deep issue, pun intended, that both dualism and the Silicon Valley materialism miss is that human identity is not composed of various parts that all fit together like pieces in a puzzle or cogs in a machine. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. Descartes sat by the fire in his study and determined that he was only a thinking thing, only a ghost in a machine. But our unified being, our human embodiment, is living, breathing, always in a state of becoming, with freedom and agency in a world with others. And it is this awareness of our freedom, combined with an awareness of our own mortality and the fact of other people, that terrifies us. We live in a contemporary culture ironically obsessed with the idea of authenticity while running from it all the time. Bad faith, not telling the truth to ourselves, is not living authentically. Bad faith and dualistic thinking are not just reconciled by acknowledging a mind residing in a body or a body living in time. We also live in a world of others, always, already, being with others, as the phenomenologists would tell us. And here's where my real critique of AI rests. It's not necessarily artificial, mechanistic minds that concern me. It's the lack of acknowledging other minds, other embodied minds. The more we are told that AI bots are viable substitutes for human interaction across a variety of realms, therapists, teachers, advisors, boyfriends, the more easily we can avoid the problem of other minds. Narcissism is fundamentally the problem of knowing other minds. We can never know that others are like us. We can never truly know the minds of other humans. The only way that we can match or thereby unify the inner lives of others with the fleshly objects that we see before us is through language, art, creativity, the stuff of imagination. Creativity and art are then fundamental ways of accessing other minds. And it's important here to recognize the moral imagination as well. The moral imagination is the capacity to conjure the world the way it could be, the way it ought to be. It implies a value system that determines a future that isn't simply unavoidable, inevitable, as they would tell us that AI is, but one that is actively chosen in freedom and agency, because that is a future worth having. Our natural tendency to run from our own freedom and embrace narcissism is exploited by seductive technologies. AIs, and I mean here both LLMs and companion chatbots, are seductive precisely because they are our mirrors. They are nothing but imitations of us, inherently deceitful and inherently objectifying. They become a multitude of selves, each one prepared to psychophanically perform for the sake of the seductive game. all carefully programmed by the brilliant minds at OpenAI. This creation of a monstrous double in the form of AI leads to the death of self. And then the mythic horror of discovering one's own double is illustrated in this scenario. Each one has been duplicated, made replaceable, so to speak. One is no longer needed. We see this in horror films, right? So death becomes imminent. Jobs apocalypse, anyone? On a larger level, counteracting these seductive forces requires deliberate and intentional commitment to the sorts of experiences that the technological order itself undermines, tending to your embodied presence. While many of us try to do this in small ways, for instance, yoga and Pilates culture and dance parties, I'm trying to find some of my dance party partners, you cannot simply choose harder or will your way out of a structurally distorted world. How do you choose authentically, live meaningfully in a world that is set up to defeat that? How can we remind ourselves of our freedom and have the wherewithal and strength to stare into the abyss of our own chasm of choices, determining value for ourselves? If we accept that we are embodied, we accept the responsibility not only for the choices we make, but also for collectively building the conditions in which choices are made. Indeed, we humans are embodied and sensitive and susceptible to what's around us, which reciprocally conditions us at every moment. If we consider for a moment bad faith to be a bad habit, and true safety through authentic connection with others to be a good habit, and if we consider ourselves to have a collective moral imperative to build the environment in such a way that encourages the good, it seems clear that AI is habituating an environment contrary to the contrary to these good habits and toward the bad habit of bad faith. Okay. One important facet of resistance is finding and leaning into safety. But I don't mean safe spaces as we frequently talk of them. Talk of safe spaces is also seductive because it appeals to our desire to make safety controllable and appear on command. Can you think of a few places in our society where we're sold the idea of artificial safety? Anyone want to share any ideas? Just kidding. It's not a class, you're not going to call anybody. There are a lot of ways that we're sold a commodified version of safety. But yet again, safety is only earned by and through other humans in non-commodified experiences. Do you know what the ethics division, I say facetiously, of these big AI companies is often called? Trust and safety. Ironic, right? Now, it's an understatement to say that words matter, but in this case, this designation really deserves a closer look. Over the past several years, I've had the opportunity to be at a lot of different events with these trust and safety folks, and I'm sure that the individual people serving in these capacities mean well. It's really a farce to say that they are creating trust and safety within a corporation, an AI corporation that's actually designed to do the exact opposite. So then, what is safety and what does it mean to feel safe? When I asked you to think of a place earlier, one of your first memories, I hope that the place you envisioned was a place where you felt indeed safe. As a child, our first homes, the first physical places where we find ourselves were often, hopefully, places we felt safe. Walls, bedrooms, tunnels, rooftops, the way the light fell, these were environments where, in the best cases, our bodies came to know trusted others who made our environment safe, where our physical needs were met and where our attachments could flourish and grow in safety, where we could learn to explore and roam and come back to a literal safe base, a safe space. Most importantly, these were places where we came to know love. Real love involves some form of trust. To finally allow the self to become exposed while still expecting to be accepted requires an enormous amount of trust. This kind of trust directly opposes the sort of deceit involved in bad faith, where an individual constructs a false and incomplete version of the self. Ultimately, trust and love are protective of the self. A psychological term that has become sort of mainstream lately refers to this. Some of you may even be familiar with it, and literally just today I saw that Harper's Bazaar did an article on it, but the polyvagal theory. So the vagus nerve, the one that runs from the base of our brain to create the core of our central nervous system, is often referred to as the seat of our ability to self-regulate. This is the part of the body that causes a racing heart when we feel scared or shallow breathing when we feel anxious. The vagus nerve, some theorists believe, is fully responsible for how we know our place in this world and how we fundamentally know whether we are safe or not. The vagus nerve, as the director of the autonomic nervous system, is more responsible for our sense of well-being than even our brain. Perhaps you're already beginning to suspect where I'm going with this. The vagus nerve and the entire autonomic nervous system is the core of our sense of safety within the world, operating even without our knowing, at the level of the subconscious, for instance. This part of the body, the subconscious sense of safety, cannot be tricked into believing we are safe when we are not. It knows what it doesn't consciously know. You've all heard the phrase, the body keeps the score. Now, add the de facto or intrinsic alienation that is by design part of capitalism and techno-feudalism. So many arenas in our culture are designed to force us to feel safe, to sell us a sense of safety in a nice consumer-friendly package. But this, again, is a literal impossibility. We cannot be sold trust and safety through a mechanism designed to take us captive and rob us of freedom and agency. When I rage at the machine, it's because at a core level, my nervous system knows that I am trading true safety for convenience and efficiency. We are being systematically and strategically separated from the very bodily experiences through which consciousness becomes real. Remember, your body is how you think. Our bodies know that we're being tricked, seduced, lied to, boiled alive, that we are being reduced to objects, being controlled and surveilled and diminished, all on the altar of efficiency and control. The physiological states of fear, anxiety, and outrage are enormously profitable. The attention economy thrives on this, and the attachment economy of AI gives us literally no way to escape, because it gives us fake others in the form of AI chatbots that will never make us feel safe. Because of, or even despite, the terrifying fact of our own mortality and lonely death, we seek solace and comfort in a world of others. But these others are only a true, authentic comfort if we know that they too will one day face their lonely deaths. It is our very essential aloneness that drives us and draws us out of ourselves into a world of others. While there are certain facts in our lives that cannot change, our limitations, our mortality, our interdependence on others is where we will find the real magic, the sacred and the ineffable. The capacity to be drawn towards another, an invitation to what's real, is impossible apart from finding a sense of genuine safety. And this is really the crux of it all. To have a relationship with a machine, a chatbot that is designed to suit us and respond exactly to our needs, is no relationship at all. Because it is precisely in the wildness of the radical freedom of the other, a human other, that we are brought into the true awareness of the precariousness of our own lives. And only in that recognition can we find the comfort that the other exists there too and has felt it too. They have not just felt sadness and fear and happiness, but perhaps most importantly, loneliness and anguish. The delight and joy of real friendship and companionship is knowing that in freedom, another human can choose us, can face their own aloneness by also struggling to make sense of a real other human. Think for a moment of poor little Punch the monkey who went viral a few weeks ago carrying around his IKEA stuffed monkey. He was a monkey at the zoo who was abandoned by his mother and took comfort in a stuffed animal that the zookeepers gave him to soothe him. This image is so profound and poignant because it truly is all of us, clutching our AIs for comfort. AIs of all variety, the chatbots and companion bots, are simply a battered, poor substitute. And the substitute doesn't leave room for the real thing. As Tim Keller would have said, it's a counterfeit companion. If our arms are full of our lifeless AIs, we can never let go to have the capacity for the real thing. Okay. Technology is a bad faith enabler because it is built on a lie about the self, about who and what we are. It encourages us to believe that we can control the world and control death and control others. It makes us think we can conjure up safety in a perfectly commodified package, an AI chatbot. Like Narcissus drowning in his own reflection, what we long for is not there. But if what we have is good enough, if we are vaguely satisfied with our soyvent version of safety, we will never taste the riches of embodied relationship. So I'll leave you with this one final thought, almost. It's on this point that we see the connection to ethics. Ethics only makes sense in a world of others. Only when my desires come into conflict with yours do we need to figure out how to coexist. In a world of humans who are all hurtling towards their own individual deaths, who struggle and cry and laugh and scream, and who are equally deserving of dignity and respect and understanding, we have to work to see that those others are just like us. Only when we can get out of our own natural narcissism and egoism to have empathy, true empathy for another, can ethics take root. If we continue to create a society in which everything is there to suit our own individual whims and desires at every moment, including AI companions who will only ever say and do exactly what we want, we are only feeding our natural selfish desires. Now more than ever, we need to be finding ways to struggle to know the other, to socialize and empathize, to expand our hearts. And this is why the idea of authenticity is so key. Authenticity, telling the truth about ourselves, is recognizing that inner subjectivity is a key to self-knowledge. You may sometimes think, as I did when I was younger, that if only I could get away to a mountaintop, away from everyone, I could really know who I was. I could get to the essence of myself. But we are nothing if not in community. Born in a relationship with a mother, constantly imitating the faces of those around us as we grow. It is through others that the world even makes sense, and this is so fundamental. What we long for in relationships, in our social selves, is shared meaning making. Whether through art or conversation or simply being in silence with another human body, we are creating resonance, as the sociologist Herbert Rosa would put it. Vibrating, reciprocating, shared meaning, ricocheting from one embodied being and back again. Similarly, Charles Taylor and Hannah Arendt wrote about horizons of significance and spaces of appearance. The world of others is how our lives and our very selves even make sense. If we diminish our capacity for the other, if we don't acknowledge this role of those others in our lives, meaning itself begins to erode as well. Other humans are not objects, instruments, tools, or calculators. They are not mirrors meant to seduce or be in service to us exclusively, say in the case of AI. They offer us an invitation to a transformation and a communal opportunity to create meaning together. And this transformation is fundamentally uncontrollable, just as is accepting radical freedom. And accepting this possibility for transformation, even in the face of passing time and our individual and collective deaths, is the only thing that will save us. And I think this is the fundamental lesson of ethics as well. My own heart is known only among a world of others who I see and know are just like me. I'm reminded again of the old cutting board on the wall of my childhood beach house, and I would say to you all as well, grow old along with me, the best is yet to be. Okay.